listeners, friends and colleagues, here we are again, another podcast, and today I'm really pleased to have a colleague of the industry and a really old friend. And I say old friend, we go back to mid-70s. And it's Martin Burt, who's the CEO and owner of Worldwide Energy Logistics Limited, WELL as they're known. So Martin, thanks very much for coming on.
It's a pleasure, Chris.
Good man, good man. I'd like to ask you a quick question firstly, just to get things rolling. But why did you agree to come on the podcast, Martin?
Well, you've been misleading me for a number of years, Chris, and I've always found it difficult to say no to you. Ever since that time you called me up at home as a 15-year-old and said, could I come and play for you for Customs and Excise? And you pulled up outside the door. You had the kit in the car. I got changed in the car as we drove to Hounslow Barracks to receive a very serious learning curve in how to play football against some fairly rough opposition.
That's right. That was the Tent Signals Army boys.
Yeah, that is the vertical learning curve of going from schoolboy football to pub football.
Yeah. But you were always a big lad, big hands, and I remember you did well. So I really appreciated that, Martin. That's one I owe you. Listen, well, how did it start?
Well was actually started as Energy Worldwide Logistics, but we wanted to get an acronym going, and then so after registering the company, we actually ended up rewording it. So we actually got back to the acronym of WELL, which was very good because we were targeting the oil and gas industry, because oil and gas industry has some fantastic projects. They work in very remote areas, so it's very exciting and very interesting work, as opposed to just knocking out airway bills or bills of lading for global destinations. It really is challenging work. So
yeah, go on. Sorry, I was losing you a little bit. You just got that big thing there in front of you.
Yes. So Worldwide Energy Logistics was started really as a result of falling out with a former business partner. So I'd gone into a business, Murphy Shipping. I went into a relationship, if you like, a business relationship with the founder of Murphy, which was a gentleman called Murphy. He was a Nigerian guy. Unfortunately, Murphy passed away, and his wife became the benefactor of the shareholding. And subsequent to the family, the daughters growing up, then when the mother passed, the daughters inherited the shares, and they suddenly appeared and wanted to take control of the business, which they felt was their right. And of course, that got us into a bit of a dispute. So whilst the dispute was unravelling, we simply, my wife and another gentleman called Paul Burnett, we established Worldwide Energy Logistics. So we were fighting fire on the one hand and developing a business on the other.
I've got to admit, Martin, ever since you were a young lad and we first met, and this goes back to the old days, the Railway Club. So if anybody's out there still old enough to have been at the Railway Club in the heyday back in the 70s and 80s, they'd remember the great times down there. But you always remind me as a bit of a cowboy, somebody who went out to the Wild West, always willing to break new frontiers, and the way you've done and the way you've carried out and grown your business, I'll take my hat off to you. Now, obviously, when you started there, you, for some reason, decided that you were going to just go everywhere and anywhere and pursue business. Can you just give us a little bit of background of where you went, why you did it, and how you did it?
Okay, let me just take a giant step back. So how did I get into the industry in the first place? I had gone to British Airways for an engineering apprenticeship, and I'd passed the initial tests and had been accepted on an apprenticeship, but the apprenticeship wasn't going to start till October, and there I was in March. So a good friend of ours, Bill Devereux, he'd taken a job at I believe it was All Transport over in Bedfont, and he called me up and said, there's a job going next door as a junior in Forward Air. Why don't you take the job? And after 6 months, when you're due to start your apprenticeship, you just hand your notice in. It's only 1 week's notice. So I applied for the job. I got the job, so I went there as a junior. And it was a bit of a go for at the time, get the coffees, get the teas, do this, do that. But I befriended an Indian guy who lived over in Hounslow, and I managed to persuade my boss that he would allow me to come in on overtime, come in at 6 o'clock in the morning with the early shift, and stay late when they were on late shift. So it was alternative weeks. So that gave me a foundation to understand these were the movers and shakers. These were the guys who made everything happen in the company. They dealt with all the problems, all the difficult shipments, the perishables, the hazardous, and so as a 16-year-old, I was able to get such a great amount of knowledge in a very short period of time. So, come 9 o'clock in the morning, if I'd come in on early shift at 6, I would do 3 hours with those guys. Then I'd go and do my own job, go home at 5:30. If it was the late shift, then I would do my job up till 5:30 from 9. And then after that, sometimes work with those guys 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock at night. So that gave me the foundation. So what was always in the back of my mind and was always a worry was that my brother, Cameron, he had an apprenticeship with British Airways and my mum worked for British Airways. So I thought, do I really want to work in the family business at British Airways? And so apart from the fact I really loved the freight, I had this concept of not really wanting to be under that sort of family cloud, and so I was a bit of a rebel and decided to reject the apprenticeship, and that started my career in logistics. Incidentally, about 18 months later, British Airways cancelled all apprenticeships, so it's actually quite lucky. If you remember, Robert Dunk, he was actually paid off from that. So I went through a number of jobs. I within 2 years, I was the shift supervisor at Forward Air. I left and went back as a supervisor, and Glyn Soper was the supervisor on one shift, and I was a supervisor on the other. So it was quite a rapid progress through the industry, and so had a number of different jobs and got into eventually become a manager, and then I went into a first business, a company called All Freight. I had some shares with a guy called John Bagley, and that turned a bit sour after a couple of years because he was sort of cooking the books a little bit, I would say. No disrespect, John, but something wasn't quite right there. But notwithstanding, it's always learning lessons in life and understanding how to conduct yourself and do business. At that time, I had an opportunity. A company came to me and said they had a problem with some business in Uganda. And Uganda at that time was after the Idi Amin and Milton Obote eras. The country was on its knees. They had the currency was worthless. It wasn't going anywhere very fast. Nobody had any money. The British government were trying to assist them with expertise. They had a lot of British guys looking after the printing. The government printing works, steel works, this works, that works. So they had a lot of assistance, but there was no money. So the opportunity came that a company was doing barter trading. So they would sell, for example, print machinery, and they would take payment in coffee. So no money actually changed hands. In taking payment in coffee, then of course they just simply resold the coffee further along the supply chain, and then that's how they collect their money. So it was like a triangular process. But the coffee buyer was now complaining that the coffee was full of impurities. So they came to our company and said, could we offer any advice? Could we investigate how to improve the supply chain? So I immediately put my name on it. Said, I'll be off to Uganda and take on this problem. So there was already a couple of containers had been, if you like, purchased within the triangular process. So I had the containers diverted into a warehouse, which I just simply flew into Kampala, rented a warehouse, diverted the coffee there. I'd taken some sieves from the UK in my baggage. I just had some local labourers literally empty every single bag onto these sort of mats on the floor, and we just removed all the impurities. So we ended up with about 500 kilos of impurities at the end of it, but all the coffee was rebagged. I simply then got hold of the client. He then instructed the farmers they had to obviously top up the product with good product. We did that for a few shipments, and then problem solved. So it's the sort of role that Bureau Veritas or SGS or one of these sort of let's say inspection companies would take care of these days. But it was a great exposure into a country I'd never been to before, and simply solving a problem, and that gave me a real appetite for
solutions,
for solving problems, and doing it in often difficult and remote areas.
Well, from that opening statement and a few people's names and everything, it's great to reflect back on those names. But I think people will very quickly realise you're a man of direct speech. You don't hold anything back, and you're willing to take on challenges all over the place. One of the things I thought was typical of you, and thanks for sharing it with me, was when you decided to give your two of your lads an opportunity. And most people would say, you know, what did he do? Did he give him a decent job in the company? Yes, you did. Did he give him a car? Not so much a car, but you gave him another opportunity. So you sent one to Erbil, and you sent one to Angola. Little bit of reasoning behind that. And Dan and Jamie, if you get to listen to this, he said it with such passion. I know it was meant in the best way.
Well, life is full of challenges, and you can find a lot about yourself when you're in these remote and sometimes hostile areas. And it really develops your maturity and your decision making, because you know you can live a long time to regret the things that maybe don't go quite as you'd like. So yeah, it was just we were passionate about developing both those markets, and we have a great partner in Angola, a guy called Lewis, who incidentally he has 2 kids now in the UK. They're in Guildford studying English. So Jamie had a nice reunification with them a couple of weeks ago at my house. So there was an opportunity for Jamie and for Dan to not only find out about themselves, grow up in their own way, but also, learn how to solve problems, how to live remotely, and maybe, get a start in life which they wouldn't otherwise get. The UK system is very tough for youngsters, as we're seeing now. People can't get onto the property ladder. It's almost impossible to make, to save for a deposit. The way the UK employment system works, relatively low salaries, high taxation, and very costly to live. So, this was an opportunity they could get on in life.
Yeah, no, I think it's fantastic. And did you ever go and share a beer or a drink with Dan in the German beer garden in Erbil?
Well, I did once, but I did explain to him that that's not particularly safe area. I think he understood, especially when you see some of the extremities in terms of that part of the world, very hostile area. So you simply can't gift anybody an opportunity for an easy hit. So you have to have common sense. I remember coming out to before Dan went to Erbil, I was the first one to go. I went on a trade mission there, which was still quite touch and go. It was still the remnants of the Gulf War was still very much evident. And I came out of my hotel and I was waiting to be picked up one morning, and some VIPs were gathering around the hotel door, and I thought this is quite interesting. Something's going to happen here. Anyway, eventually this vehicle pulled up outside, and it had an escort in front, an escort behind, a lot of sort of military dressed guys with guns and flak jackets, etc. Anyway, these guys they were rushed out of the hotel. They went to the back of the car. Somebody opened the boot of the car, and they then casually took their jackets off and put flak jackets on before getting into the car and driving off with this escort. And I just simply thought,
why would you do that?
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
Why would you just put that flak jacket on in the hotel lobby and then they'd come straight into the car? But It was such a. But I mean, those are the sort of lessons you learn in life. I didn't have a flak jacket myself at the time, but I didn't feel it was that hostile. I didn't feel like it was necessary. But certainly, if you feel one is necessary, you don't casually put one on outside.
But you blend in anywhere, Martin.
Yeah.
You blend in anywhere, mate. Right, listen. Right, so I admire, literally, seriously, the amount of things that you've done and where you've been. Fantastic. Now, whereabouts have you got offices?
We have offices in Turkey. Obviously, Sevinç, my wife, is Turkish. We have an office there, which is headed up by her sister Serap. We're in Angola. We are in Nigeria. We are in Houston, Texas. In Erbil, in Republic of Georgia, in Tbilisi. Dubai, Oman, and so
good spread.
Yes, a good spread.
And you cover all the interesting parts of the world.
We cover challenging parts of the world because you can add value. There's so many people in logistics and supply chain who simply turning papers over. There's no there's no real need to do that in many of the established parts of the world. We can't add any value. So where we've had some degree of success is, of course, we're competing with billion-dollar companies, Kuehne Nagel, these global enterprises, DHL, etc. So in the niche markets, you can add some significant value. You can really make your presence felt, and you can outcompete even the biggest companies.
Why not explain the one you told me about, the barges that you had to put together and do all the water testing and the narrowness of the waterways? Okay,
so we did a project it was the first oil rig to be shipped into the Caspian Sea. So anybody who knows their geography well will know that the Caspian Sea is a landlocked sea. Some people say it's a lake. Interestingly, there's 5 nations that border the Caspian Sea, and I think 3 of them believe it's a lake and 2 believe it's a sea, because their arguments would give them more ocean territory and probably, I guess, more mineral rights for that area. But the main waterway in is the River Volga, which obviously comes from through Russia. There is a secondary route from the Black Sea area, which is the River Don, which enters from the city of Rostov, and then that goes up to the Volga. So in the River Don, there's 18 locks, which goes from the Black Sea, or the Sea of Azov, which is just to the north of the Black Sea, and that waterway goes up 18 locks to Volgograd, and then they catch they turn into the Volga and then down into the Caspian Sea. So the challenge was that we had the rig would have had to come in modules, so we had to do a lot of research on what would be the optimum sizes to navigate the waterway. Now, that waterway actually freezes in winter, so it's only navigable from late March through to about October. The rest of the year is actually frozen. We ended up with pontoons which were 90 meters long by 14 meters wide by 16 meters high. They weighed 2,500 tons each. So 2 giant, almost like square submarines, if you like, but they had no motor or other mechanism to drive them, so they had to be towed and pushed. So we managed to locate some pusher tugs in Russia. We got permission from the Russian Ministry of Transport to use the waterway, and we put the complete package together to deliver these. So they were on a semi-submersible ship from Singapore to the Black Sea. The submersible vessel sinks in the water. You float off the cargo. We attach the towing ropes, and off they went on their nice journey up the waterway. Me being me, trying to get obviously some publicity for this and get some real great photographs and some video film. I persuaded my colleague, an Azeri guy who unfortunately since passed, Ralph Mamedov. So Ralph was a Russian speaker, but he was an Azerbaijani citizen. And Ralph and we drove out of Rostov, and we drove about 100 kilometers up country to monitor the movement of the towing of the pontoons. And as I'm sitting on a bridge with a yellow fleecy in bright sunny morning, taking photographs and filming, etc., this larder pulled up, and this guy started shouting and spitting and swearing in Russian, and I just was flabbergasted by this guy's approach. But he was really smelling of vodka. Anyway, it turned out that he was a policeman, and it'd been reported that I was filming a military installation, which was obviously a lock. And so I was taken to the police station for 5 hours to be interrogated. I had to wait for a couple of hours for the KGB, as it was, or FSB as they were renamed, to come and speak to me. For the first 2 hours, Ralph was basically translating the questions from Russian, and eventually they brought their own English-speaking crew. So I was being accused of being in the UK military, and because in Yugoslavia, the NATO were bombing bridges and infrastructure. So they said that I was a UK spy filming a military installation.
So another near miss, Martin.
Yes.
I was just thinking about the way you were describing the geography there, and I'm still thinking about a background in Feltham and down the railway club. And probably the nearest I've come to listening to those directions was when we were planning a little trip down to Selsey Bill.
Yes.
To the caravans, probably when we were 16, 17, around that particular time. Near misses. Do you remember the time when we were driving down to Bude? Four of us.
Indeed, I do.
Four of us. Jerry Fogarty, Billy Devereaux, yourself and me.
Yes, I remember as we came careering around a corner. It was in the middle of the night, I think, probably either very late at night or early hours, and it was a very wide bend. Probably we were all tired and falling asleep, and we went into a massive swerve. Probably scraped the side of a bus or something, and I ended up in the footwell. I was literally thrown into the space where previously only my feet had been. So that was the car was rocking and rolling from almost on two wheels. So
it was actually a coach. I was driving and I thought, oh my God, we're finished here, and it just clipped us at the back and span. We were so lucky.
Yeah, that was a rude awakening. Yeah,
how things would have changed if. Well, thank God that nothing happened. And I'm sure Billy and Jerem still remember it, because I can still remember the smell coming from the back seats.
Yes.
I'm not sure whether that was you, Jerem, or Billy. But no, that was a good one. Listen, as with all those things that went on and all of the journeys, how do you relax?
Well, I love watching my two youngest daughters. They play a lot of sport between them for school. Yasmin's a rower. She rows for Lady Eleanor Hollis. She's got Nat Schools coming up this weekend. And the younger one, she's a bit of an all-rounder. She'll play any sport. She doesn't think she plays particularly well, but she's very feisty, very determined. And she's come a long way in the last year, really punching above her weight in hockey, in netball, and now in cricket. So that's a great way. If you can't play sport, it's fantastic if you can, spend that quality time, with your family who do.
It is great, isn't it? Even when you're watching, doesn't matter how good you were yourself. I think it's better watching your kids. So I love watching mine, and my son still plays rugby. And what about Annabelle, your oldest daughter?
Yeah, she's really matured into a lovely young lady. She's into the legal profession, and she's got herself a training contract in the city now, and she's really doing well.
That might come in handy, Martin, with some of the comments you've made.
Well, I would like to say that any comment I've made, I haven't said anything which is not true. So from my perspective, so
Martin, don't worry about it. I love it. It's the way to do it. That's straight out. Listen now, as far as hobbies yourself. Right, so I know you keep yourself fit, you keep running, you're doing walks, you're doing the 3 Peaks shortly, aren't you?
3 Peaks in about 10 days, yeah.
Yeah, that's a challenge and a half, isn't it?
That is, yeah. I might have bitten off more than I can chew there, but anyway, we'll see. I'll do my best.
Yeah, no, a lot of my friends have done that. One of them still can't walk properly as a result, but it was worthwhile. Now, as far as people who mentored you when you were young, because one of the things that we want to promote is how to bring youngsters into this business, because people don't think it's sexy. Now, some of your stories will make people realise just how exciting and challenging it can be. But who mentored you as a young lad?
Well, I think I just had a good ability to blend in with other groups. So I wouldn't say that I had any one particular mentor, but I was always very keen to learn, and therefore it was very easy for me to sit with others and suck up their knowledge and fully understand how they would themselves would be an expert at what they did. And logistics is one of those I would say professions whereby you simply can't just go and learn it. Even if you get a master's degree in supply chain, a lot of the situations that you'll face on a daily basis, you can't learn in a classroom. They're real life situations. And when you're running a business, you get a lot of challenges. They can be legal challenges. Companies go bust. So I've had the ability to really just learn on my feet, and I guess there's been a lot of people along the way who really give me quality time and an opportunity to learn. So
we're sort of keeping a Hall of Fame. Is there anybody you'd like to mention? If they heard you, at least recognise them, they might bring a smile to their face, or
Well, this one sounds a bit cheesy, but my wife Sevinch, she's Turkish, and Turks are generally pretty sound business people. They know how to do business, and Sevinch, as well as being a fantastic support in terms of our family life and being my wife, she's an outstanding business person as well. So she's very dynamic, looks after money very well. She's the commercial side of the business, and she looks after the money, and she looks after it very well. And she's very honest and reliable. So she is a great asset and a great partner.
That's sorted you out. That's not only romantic, it's a little bit, so your weekend sorted out then.
Well, like I said,
she'll be happy to hear that one.
I only say the things that are true.
I only say the things that are true. That's wrapped it now in a bow, Martin. Yeah, fantastic. Now you're putting me under pressure. Kathy, I think you're wonderful.
Well, Kathy is wonderful, and she's been a great support for you over the years.
Yeah, 36 years. 36 years this year.
Yeah, no, that's an amazing achievement. And when you look at life's achievements, that that has to be up there with them.
Oh, Martin, I didn't look at it like that. Wait, I'll, next time I get a chance to say something, I'll explain it. I'll say this has been an incredible achievement. Not sure it's as romantic as what you said, but we'll give it a go. Now, as far as let's say the boys and Sevinch who've worked with you for a long time now, if I was to hook up with them and say, what do you think Martin should change? What do you think they'd say? What would be the things that they'd say you need to change?
Hopefully not a lot, because what I've always tried to do is keep my feet on the ground. Growing up in Feltham was I think quite a major building block for life, because growing up in Feltham was tough. I've got an interesting story. When we first moved over to Burwood Park, the girls wanted to pick some flowers. It was springtime, and they wanted to get some daffodils for their mum and for their nana. So they went out on the bikes. So this was 3 years ago, and they came back and they were very sheepish. They disappeared upstairs, and so I thought something was a little bit amiss there. But I called them up. They said no, everything's fine. Anyway, about half an hour later, they tucked a little note under the sort of kitchen door, and it said, "Dad, sorry about this, but we've upset one of the neighbours because we were picking some daffodils, and he started shouting at us, and he took the flowers away." I said, "Well, that's not fair, is it? That's something not quite right there." And I said, "Well, we have to go and confront the guy and discuss it and try to understand what's going on there." So the girls didn't want to do it. But I said, "Look, let's go in the car. You show me the house. I'll park around the corner, and I'll just go and have a chat with the guy." So sure enough, knocked the door, and I said, the guy came out and said, "Are you the guy who was shouting at my daughters?" And he said, "I wasn't shouting at them." I said, "You've been very heavy-handed. These are a couple of young girls." And he said, "Yes." He said, "It's illegal to pick bluebells." I said, "Well, they weren't picking bluebells. They were picking daffodils." And he said, "Well, it's illegal to pick daffodils." I said, "It's not illegal to pick daffodils." I said, "Were they in your garden?" He said, "No, they were on the common land across the road." I said, "You told the girls that you planted them there. Is that true?" And I said, "Did you have permission from the landowner to plant, flowers on his territory?" Anyway, it turns into a bit of a dispute, and I said, "Look, I'm only here because you're heavy-handed. You confiscated the flowers, so on the one hand you're telling them it's wrong to pick them, and then you've confiscated them, so presumably they're in a vase somewhere in your house." So I said that is really not the proper way to treat young girls. And
I'm just picturing this now.
Yeah,
how I'd feel with you coming to the door and giving me that.
No, so he said to me, "Where do you live?" So I immediately read into that this guy is on the committee somewhere, and I've only just moved into the estate. I thought, sort of rolled my eyes. I thought, "Oh, this is a bad situation." And I said, "Well, that's actually none of your business." And he said, "Well, you know where I live." I said, "Precisely." So he now felt pretty much intimidated by that, and he said, "You peasant." So my point, coming back to your issue about growing up in Feltham, if I had an extra 20 minutes, I could have explained to him that I was born in Socky in Scotland. I grew up in Feltham. Being called a peasant would actually have been a promotion for me. But I don't think he quite would have understood that. But so, yeah, it puts everything into perspective. So coming back to your previous point, yeah, I try to keep my feet on the ground. I try to have fun all the time and look at the lighter side of life. Always ready to have a laugh and a joke, and remember the the good times.
Feltham was good though. I loved growing up there. We had great times, Martin. Plus
we had a market on Saturday mornings.
Exactly, and we picked flowers from wherever we wanted.
Yes, and nobody would ever challenge you on those.
No. But coming back to what would they change? Because everybody that I've ever spoken to who's been successful or has really worked hard, what they say is that sometimes they put so much time into their work that if they could go back and do it again, they'd do it a little bit differently. True?
Well, I think if you're circumspect, you will always want to do something better. I've been so lucky. You asked me before, what is one of the secrets to success, and I said luck. Luck plays such a massive role. So for me, I've been so lucky. I've been lucky being surrounded by great people who believe in delivering quality service, people who put the time and effort into that. It's a stressful industry. There's the old saying, you're only as good as the last job, and that is more true today than it's ever been. Yeah. So, luck has been a great part of that. So I've been surrounded by some fantastic people, and everybody who works for one of our offices is included in that. They turn up for work, they do their bit, and we like to encourage them. So
that's nice. It's always a team, isn't it? I always tell people, especially youngsters, identify a really good manager, because it's better to work for a good manager than for a great company. And a good manager will always push you, include you, teach you, and I think that's what's missing sometimes today, because people have got their own agenda. And a little bit like sport, our business has become a little bit sterile, and it's fixed, and you have to do this and you mustn't do that, and there's so much regulation and governance that people are almost afraid to do things that come natural to them. And I think it's such a shame, which also, in my opinion, dilutes characters within the industry. And I remember coming in, not that I wanted to be like someone, but I could look at people and I could see the way they were and how much they influenced other people in the business. And I thought it was always nice to see characters at certain conferences and certain shows, and when you meet them over business, it inspired you, and it also made you feel a little bit different about the company that they were with or that they were running. How do you feel on that?
Of course, you have to take inspiration from any source, but it's a fact of life that if you want to get on, you have to be prepared to push somebody. And I don't mean physically get stroppy with people, but you have to push. Everybody around you has to be pushing you, and you have to be pushing them in return. So especially a small business in the service sector, you're not going to go anywhere unless you're pushing each other to achieve extra special things. So we're very lucky that we created that chemistry. We have that ingredient, because without it, you simply couldn't be successful.
No, I agree, Martin. I've always felt that, and in sport and anything, that the most important thing is that you want to win. And winning is important. And I think these days people are trying to say, no, it's okay, you don't have to be a winner, you don't know. But I think winners matter.
Definitely.
And I can remember a couple of Christmases ago, and we got a carpet putting game, and we set it up, and the whole family was doing it, and we got to the final, and it was me and my mother-in-law, and she was probably 81 then. And I can remember it was deadly serious, and she was serious as well. And she's a lovely lady, one of the nicest ladies in the world. And she was really, wanted to take it. And I remember my daughter saying to me, "Dad, it's Nan. She's 80." I said, "Gabs, a win's a win."
Yeah, absolutely.
Had to do it, but it's no. I think these days to want to win is an ingredient that shouldn't be put down or said as negative. I think winners are so important. Talking about winners, got to mention somebody that we both know, Ferdy Rosario.
Yeah.
What's he doing now, do you know?
He just retired from the police.
Has he?
Yeah, he's been there for, I think, 25 years, 30 years, something like that. He was on TV about a month ago.
I bet he loved that.
Yes, he was putting some bad people away. He did a great job there. Very interesting documentary.
Oh, fair play to him. So that's another one who did well, yeah. But I love the background of Feltham. I think it taught us so many things. There's so many people I remember from there. The great guys. It was a great place.
It was, yeah. But you had some very bad people there. we were in a semi-detached house, and there were a couple of old ladies who lived next to us for quite a number of years. Then I think they either admitted to hospital or something, and my dad had been frustrated by this tree, which had been in their garden for many years and was blocking a lot of light to our back windows. So as soon as the ambulance literally pulled up the street, he said, "Come on, let's get that tree down." So Ferdy and me and my brothers and my dad were in there with our axes and chopping away this tree. And I glanced up at one point and realised there's some people looking from the window. A new family had already moved in, and we were in their garden chopping their tree down. So so that was Feltham for you. So you had a sort of fairly straightforward, make the rules up as you go along.
Yeah, but sometimes that's not that bad. Sometimes it's not that bad.
No, but this is just touching on your point about winners and losers. Yeah, this is absolutely crucial, I would say, for the youngsters these days, especially in good sports. They teach you how to win with humility and lose with humility. Unfortunately, football's probably not really in that category, because you see 5-6-year-olds abusing referees, etc. So, but in sports, rugby in the rowing, there's a lot of dignity in winning and a lot of dignity in losing, and people, that really sets you up for life. Those are very important lessons to have.
No, I agree. I agree. And what do you reckon for the World Cup this year, Japan?
Yeah, I'm expecting to be over there at least for a couple of games, and I think it can probably go any one of about 6 ways. So I think the Irish definitely in with a shout, the Welsh, England, probably the All Blacks have to be up there. France, you can never write them off. Scotland may pull something out of the bag for some big wins.
I think one of the home nations is going to win.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Think it'd be fantastic.
It'd be great if we get a European winner.
Yeah, I'd love to get out there. Now, just to start wrapping up a little bit, bucket lists. Everybody talks about a bucket list. Anything that you'd love to do that you haven't done yet, or anything that's on it that nobody really knows?
Well, I'm going to climb Mount Fuji with Savinch in Japan. That's already penciled in for later this year. So yeah, she knows that, does she? She already knows that. Yeah, and it's not like the trip we made to Kilimanjaro where we had to camp for a week on the mountain and quite uncomfortable tents, etc. But this will be just one night on the mountain in some form of shack, but at least it'll be a roof over the head. So that'd be quite nice. Yes, so we would like to do a round-the-world trip, actually, and since I'll be 60 in a couple of years, we'll probably set something up for then. Yeah? Yeah. I haven't ever been to Australia, so that's definitely on the cards, but it would be good to try that trip to make it around the world.
Ah, it's lovely. You've done New Zealand, have you?
No.
Oh, Martin, that's outstanding. Absolutely outstanding.
I've been an African lover. I love safari. I love photography as a hobby. So I've done a number of safaris in various different countries: South Africa, Zambia, Botswana. That's really been my passion. But I'd like to take that further afield, get to Australia and New Zealand, and plenty of other places too.
It's well worth the trip. Absolutely beautiful. Now, if you were writing a book, would it be business, or would it be science fiction, or would it be a romance? Don't say romance now, Martin.
No, I think if I was to write a book, it would be probably a biography, just for some of the life experiences I've had. I've had some amazing experiences since I was born, basically. That I think would be interesting for other people to read into. But
you should do it.
Yeah, I did sort of start making some notes at some point, but then I became almost bored with my own experiences. But
you should do it, Martin. You should do it.
Yeah, maybe when I finally pack up the freight business, could be maybe I should target that in the next 2 years, and hand the reins over to people who can take it forward.
You could call it Footsteps from Feltham.
Yeah, why not?
Hey, there you go. Now, as far as music is concerned, what's the music that would make you get up no matter where you were and want to dance and have a bit of fun?
Well, I think the 70s and 80s is still an era of music which hangs around a lot. So there's a lot of radio stations, Magic and Heart. They still predominantly play from that era, but I like all sorts of music. I mean, I can sit and listen to some real good classical, some of these sort of modern pop songs, which even my girls listen to. Especially Yasmin, she forces me to listen. She gets in the car, she connects up her phone, and whatever she's got on it, I'm having to listen to it because I've given up trying to fight her for it. So, but now I also notice that sometimes if I've got the old folky channels on the radio, she's also making notes about some of the good songs that come up. So, but I can, Paul Weller, I can listen to, Van Morrison, any of those.
Which one of Van Morrison's? Brown Eyed Girl.
Brown Eyed Girl is a great one. I think probably the one that's really good is "Have I Told You Lately That I Love You?" Because
Martin, I'm sitting opposite, looking at you saying that.
Probably as men, we probably don't say that as often as we should. Not just to our partners, our wives, but even to our kids or. The people that mean a lot to us within the family circle. So, but that is an absolute classic.
And this is like seeing The Rock knitting.
Yeah,
I'm coming all over emotional now. I can't while I'm looking at you. No, fair play to you. But now again, just coming back to it, what would be the one song that no matter where it played, you'd be up and you'd be wanting to dance? Must be one.
The one song.
The one song.
Well, I think songs have great affinity with me for different experiences of life. For example, you mentioned Chelsea Bill, and I remember going down to Chelsea Bill and that Candy Staton song, "Young Hearts Run Free."
Young Hearts Run Free.
That was number one in the charts, and that was pumping out. So I don't think there's just one song that would inspire me, but if a song came up which triggered one of my memory moments, that would then inspire me to go and start digging out more of them. So so "Young Hearts Run Free" is a classic from Chelsea.
I remember that; it was brilliant. Talking about memory moments, how would you like to be remembered? How do you think people would remember you in the industry and as a person?
Well, I'd like to think that people would see that I've had some degree of success. I've been very lucky, and hopefully that hasn't changed me. That the 16-year-old that went to Cornwall that played football in Hounslow Barracks with Chris Notter is not dissimilar to the person that's sitting now across the table from Chris Notter. So,
Martin, I've still got a picture, I think, of us on Bude Beach with some surfboards, and the person sitting opposite me definitely looks differently. Might not be different, but looks differently.
Well,
it's terrible what time does, isn't it?
It is, and I had alopecia. I had a back problem, and I think the two were connected. I took a bad knee in the jaw when I was tackling at rugby, and I felt a shudder all the way down my spine. That's displaced a disc. Around a similar time in my 20s, I started getting alopecia. So it was very interesting. I went for my Bupa Medical last year, and so the doctor's looking through the notes. So I had alopecia for 30 years, and she said, I see here you've got alopecia. How bad is it? And I'm sitting there.
How bad is it?
Yeah. It's a bit like Where's Wally? Where if you could spot a hair, let me know where it is. So, how bad is it? I mean, the hairs on my hands, on my arms, it just disappeared. But the interesting thing about that is that I always said to myself, if that's the worst thing that ever happens to me, then have I got cause to complain? If I never, I haven't had any. I never spent a night in hospital.
Thank God.
Yeah, I've had a few injuries. I've got the displaced disc on the back. I've had some broken bones from football and rugby and what have you. But I've never spent a night in hospital. And if that remains the case for the next 20 years, I'll be the happiest guy in the world. So alopecia is. Yeah.
Plus, it looks trendy, mate. You're a cross between Rock and Van Diesel.
Oh, yes. Some people say it looks trendy.
A bit of Jason Statham thrown in, it suits you.
But it actually saves me minutes because, I used to have really curly hair, and Georgie's got curly hair, and she's always having a drama moment every morning, 5-10 minutes, untangling it and brushing it and what have you. But, yeah, for me, It's great, and I don't even have to shave it. My head used to be like a map of the world, so, and it was moving. So this bit would grow, that bit would grow, a patch would grow here, a patch would grow there. So it was like an ever-evolving map of the world. But now it's I don't even need to shine it.
No, but it's no, but it suits you, and it makes you look younger.
Yeah, some people say so.
Yeah, no, it does. It does. Okay, lovely. Right, listen. Running out of time now. It's been an absolute pleasure, Martin, and rolling back the years, and I've got some fantastic memories. And we mentioned an awful lot of the lads down there. You mentioned Glyn. We should mention Danny Fogarty. I'm not sure where Danny is now, what he's doing.
Yeah. Dan and I used to do a disco, if you remember,
Yeah.
in our early teen years.
Yeah.
So that was a blast from the past.
And there's Andy Turner. You mentioned Glyn.
Glyn, yeah.
Yeah, Robert Dunk. So we should get together with as many of them as we can soon as possible.
Yes, we did have a sort of failed reunion attempt, but somebody has to persevere and get that
like
through.
always. But listen, absolute pleasure, and I think we've put Feltham back on the map and where it should be. Great place. Are you on the committee yet?
I'm not really a committee sort of man, Chris, to be honest with you. But if ever the opportunity comes, and I'll just say how it is. I mean, if it's
anybody can pick daffodils and bluebells.
Well, bluebells, it is actually illegal to pick them. You're not supposed to pull them out by the roots. There is actually advice online. You can, if you did actually pick it, you should cut the stem, so as not to disturb the bulb part of it. But I find it a little bit.
Well, that's great now for the listeners. So a little bit of agriculture and gardening comes to logistics.
Flora and fauna advice.
Yes, indeed. From Feltham.
From Feltham.
Martin, well done. Thanks. Really appreciate you coming. And it's been great talking to you.
Thanks for the opportunity, Chris. Much appreciated.